Yeah, that's
Good
right.
weekend.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, Mr. Peter Mayhew passed away on April 30th. So
Yeah,
rest in peace.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, good day to celebrate Chewbacca in all of his glory on May the 4th. So,
That's right. That's
um,
right. So if you play Star Wars Legion, get all your Wookiees out, especially Chewbacca. Play in
absolutely.
honor of Mr. Mayhew.
Yeah.
So today we want to talk about avoiding burnout. So we always want to cover, interesting topics that people might be interested in, things they talk about in the store and whatnot, things that everyone deals with. But we can immediately get the easy stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
So the easy stuff is, yes, you can always switch to a different game system. That's easy enough to avoid burnout for a specific game. You
Yeah.
can always say, oh yeah, just change that up. If you burn out in 8th edition, just to go ahead and change it up to, War Machine and Hordes. Change it
Yeah.
up to another game. Go to board games, whatever.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
aside from the easy stuff, John, what's some stuff that you think of when you think
so
of a?
like for gamer burnout, one of the easiest, or like to me, the second easiest one besides just jumping to a new game is going to be actually like picking up a new faction or army. Especially nowadays, all the companies in general, depending on what miniature game you're playing, each faction usually has some unique mechanic represented by only them, or a unique playstyle because of the combination of special rules that they have is different than other factions. So it's not only an easy way to like combat like the monotony of playing the same army over and over again, but it's also a chance for you to relearn the rules and experience that game through more or less a different lens. So that to me is probably like the easiest way is just try a different army. But there's a lot
So
of
then,
other
what are some different play styles that different armies have? So like the one that I can think of is the classic Horde versus Elite army.
right, and
But there's some other different things as well.
you were talking about playing custodes and how it gets a little monotonous playing with the same few amount of models.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for you, switching over to something like Imperial Guard, where you can run a
Mm.
lot of infantry, um, will not only give you a different playstyle to use, but also in a game system like Warhammer 40K, is that you can eventually build a list that comprises of both Custodes and Imperial Guard. And so that's more or less a third way of reviewing the game itself. So
Mm-hmm.
you go from one army to the other, and then you have basically a third army ready, which is the combination of the two. That to me is a pretty strong way of uh, combating that or getting around that.
Right. Now, there's also things like when, an edition comes out. Well, Malifaux 3rd edition's coming out. And so there'll be the rush for people to find the perfect combination for their faction or, new things that might break the meta and whatnot. So what are some things that you would do when a new edition's coming out to avoid burning out real quick? Because a lot of folks are going to want to play Malifaux 3rd edition like crazy, right?
Yeah, and so with a new edition coming out, um, it's really easy, especially with games that have like the open beta test, to like deep dive too hard into the open beta rules, and when the new edition comes out, it doesn't feel fresh to you, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so with me, it's a lot of it when I have like gamer burnout, like when I'm playing a game too much. What I normally do is dive into the hobby. So like a way for me is I'm still in that universe. I'm still participating in that game, but I'm doing it through a different means, which is going to be painting or building displays or terrain and things like that. Um, that to me is personally how I do it a lot. Is usually like deciding to do a new scheme or like pick up a different character, like to really kind of like push myself and get invested in those models that I have, and usually that
Mm-hmm.
reignites my passion to play it. And so this works really well when you're having those addition changes. So instead of like burning out on the beta test rules, like take this time to finish up your armies and get them ready
Mm.
for the new edition. Because that's what basically I'm doing with my Malifaux stuff. Is I was playing Gremlins for second edition, but I'm probably going back to Neverborn for third,
Ooh, okay.
especially with how the keywords have changed and all of that. So I should be able to get like the critters I want in Neverborn,
Mm-hmm.
just because of that. But last night I picked up some of the Cyclopses, Cyclope. Um,
Is that the plural of Cyclops?
yeah,
Huh.
and I'm excited to do that. And it represents a different style of play in the same faction itself. Um,
Okay.
and it gives me a new painting opportunity, and that's something that's nice with some of the skirmish games that have been out, and especially skirmish games that have been out for a while. War Machine and Hordes, Malifaux are really good examples of these, but they basically have sub factions within the one faction that you play. So it basically, with those ones, instead of like jumping money on a new army, you can pick up a different subset of the existing army that you have. Whether it's like, let's say I'm a devout Khador player and I love my Doom Reavers and they've been my lifeblood for the last 2 years. Well, I'm getting a little burnt out on the rules, but I don't necessarily want to start buying another army because when I go to a tournament, I want to be familiar enough with what I've been playing to feel like I have a chance of competing. So,
Hmm.
what I'll start doing is probably pick up a subfaction like Mana War, which are the heavily armored guys. And once again, they play very different than the Doom Reavers, which are berserkers, uh, who are, in the traditional sense of berserkers, very scantily clad and die to pretty much anything. But these Man of War are these heavily armored bulk guys that are very few, and they play differently. But once again, they're in that same faction, and so they have a lot of core identity that's the same. But like on the actual table, even though they share some rules, they play differently enough to keep it exciting and keep me motivated. And then it also gives me an excuse to paint things differently because once again, these sub
Oh yeah. Okay. I didn't think about that. Hmm.
do different schemes with. So that's all really important with me. So I enjoy that.
Huh. Yeah, I didn't think about that. So for me, like when I'm going in eighth edition, the indexes came out, right? So everything was an index army, and then everyone played like crazy, getting the new rules down, making sure that everything was correct how they were playing. And at some point, you know, you play 30, 40 games, and you're playing the same missions over again. So one really important thing for me that they did was bring out like Vigilus Ablaze, and then
Yeah.
the previous one, Defiant, I believe.
Yep.
So they had all of these new missions and chapter-approved missions that you can play. And for me, things that are not just, you know, the in like when you if you just play beat stick and you're just, you know, playing to destroy each other, that gets old really fast.
Right.
Because especially because certain armies are really good at moving. Maybe like Dark Eldar, when I first played it, they were super fast. So
Yeah.
then the missions where I could like grab the center objective were very good for me early on, you know. But then now, of course, with Custodes, I prefer the beat stick.
Right. Well, and that's another good point to bring up is playing a different playstyle. Whether like if you're strictly a tournament player, give a narrative event a shot.
Hmm.
Try to play in a campaign. And this is probably one of the hardest things you can ask of someone who's been playing a game a particular way for a long time. Uh, because once again, you're trying to expose them to new rules and new ways of thinking about a game, and that's a big mental barrier that they have to kind of jump into. And sometimes you kind of have to like drag them by the heels, kicking and screaming, to really try it out. And for the most part, they're going to enjoy it. They're going to have fun, especially once again if they're playing with their friends or playing with the models that they love. If you get burnt out with 40K, there's a whole variety of things to play while keeping with those same models in that same universe. Whether you're playing, uh, going to narrative, playing campaign missions from Vigilus, or even moving
Hmm.
down to Kill Team, it's a great way to shake things up. And all those play styles are different enough to keep things interesting without you having to rebuild an entire new knowledge base about a different game. You know,
Right. And
uh,
then you can also like find people who are interested in the different types of things. So, big thing about the Gigabytes community is that we're so large that you can always find someone who might want to play Titanicus or, you know, might want to play a smaller game of 8th edition or a huge Apocalypse style game, right?
Absolutely. And that's Apocalypse is a great format. Even for like pretty much every game system out there has usually like one really large format. At least when it comes to war games.
Hmm.
Skirmish games sometimes, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to take an entire day and set all of your models out on a table and have them run into each other. It's usually not really competitive because there's so many things going on uh, that the interactions are insane. And then it's just a good way to experience a different way. Seeing everything out there kind of like, I don't know, gets me amped. It's a great way of, showing off what you've accomplished with your hobby and then also what
Hmm.
you know with your army. It's a way to prove mastery over your particular system. I know a bunch of War Machine guys have been talking about doing those like giant 3 Warcaster games, and they're pretty
Oh yeah,
excited to do it. And those things can get absolutely mad just with all the interactions. So
that'd be cool. And like Friday Night Fights that Rob
yeah,
puts on every Friday is a different thing, which is really good for keeping it fresh. So if you're always playing the same army, maybe you've been collecting a little, some tanks. Well, then you can play with your opponent. Let's play vehicle heavy games.
right. And that's something that it takes someone a lot of effort to do. And if you don't have that in your community, this is another way to fight burnout is taking the taking the stance of the community builder, right? Um, Figuring out a narrative, figuring out a fun tournament system or new rules or anything like that. It If no one else is doing it and you feel like your community is dying or burning out, take it upon yourself to do something fun, do something different, get people attracted to coming back in. Um, it's happened with like a lot of the game systems that we've carried here throughout the years, where like War Machine and Hordes, if you just do tournaments, like standard tournaments over and over and over and over and over, burnout happens, right? Because
Hmm.
things stagnate. People start realizing, oh, hey, this is kind of the ranking of the competitive players, and this is where I fit in there. And without something to really shake that up or change it, some people get discouraged. Or even if someone comes there and they're like, all right, well, I always place in the top third, you know, I guess I'm kind of like done, burnt out on it. But adding a new rule system or a specialty format keeps things up in the air. It keeps people thinking and excited about their armies. I love seeing the special rules, and especially for Friday Night Fights, because I'll get guys coming up and be like, "Oh yeah, for this one, Rob added this special rule, and I think I have a really good idea, a really good list that can take advantage of those rules." Um,
Mm.
and it's not something that's been like hammered out like over and over and over like the net tournament lists, right? So
Hmm.
it's keeping the meta fresh. It's keeping people thinking and being creative, which is, to me, being creative and inspired is a great way to fight burnout. And it takes, going back to the community builder, it takes someone who is going to more or less take a stand saying, well, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to help the community. I'm going to invent a fun rule set to have people play in. And
Hmm.
they have to say, well, it doesn't matter how burnt out I am or how much I know the system. It's going to be me who is doing this for everyone else, and we can't thank Rob enough for doing that sort of thing. But we have plenty of people around Gigabytes who do the exact same thing. Our champions, whether it's Ricky Kia with his Kill Team leagues, the Necromunda that he creates and crafts this like narrative that he can get people really into. And once again, it keeps people thinking creatively, and they'll start changing models or behaving differently based on where the story is going in itself. Same with Sean Twitty coming up with different scenarios and things like that for Saga. Historicals are great for that with different scenarios,
Oh yeah.
um, because there's almost like limit in our history. There's almost limitless war that you can go back to and reference, do different battles and change things up. Where it's just like, especially with those rules where they're as tight as they are, like it's like, all right, well,
Hmm.
cool. We're going to go back to this battle. Yeah, we've done it before, but what if it was raining that day? You know,
Ah, yeah.
your archers aren't going to be effective, so it's kind of cool to see all that stuff, and it's really shaking up the rule set and doing that sort of thing.
I think we as gamers get into the mindset of their rules are XYZ, so I kind of want to make sure I fit into the rules all the
Right.
time. And there's one thing about going against rules, right? So with the new FAQ that just released, which we could talk a little bit about for the 40K stuff,
Oh, right.
but with that, people say, well, now I have to do XYZ, but that doesn't mean that you can't change other parts of the game. So be creative with other parts of the game if you want to be a stickler for exactly playing along with the rules,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, we'll have to talk about the FAQ at some point.
Oh yeah,
I
for
know it's a
sure.
little contentious with what they came
Just
out with.
parts of it, you know.
Yeah. Troy had a really good point where it's just like, hey, listen, if you're burnt out, walking away isn't necessarily bad. Uh,
Right.
and I agree. And I think it takes a lot of like self knowledge
Mhm.
and self recognition to say, hey, I am burnt out with this game. I am no longer being a positive force for it. Whether it is, like if you feel like you're going through a grind playing a game, and you can't find that motivation again, yeah, take a step back. That's fine. Find it, and that's where you go to the easy option, right? Find a different game. Find something else to be excited about. Um, and that's okay, right? I mean, with me as someone who sells games for a living, I'm a okay with you starting a different game system, and it is the easiest way to combat fatigue. Uh,
Mhm.
we have a lot of people who have played competitive tournaments for so long that the moment they step into like a role playing game, it is like a renaissance to them where they get to experience a world where they don't have to like min max everything, and they
Mm.
play narratively, and it's a fresh perspective to them, so they don't have this built-in mentality of being absolutely competitive. And when they go back to their favorite war game, they can bring a little bit of what they've learned from a different system with them, and that is really powerful. And it's great to see when it happens. It's really cool to see people kind of shift around games. We have Magic players coming from Magic coming into miniatures, miniatures going to role playing to Magic, and every other which way around. And then a bunch of different systems in there. And when I say Magic, I mean trading card games, because it's
Right.
not always just Magic. There's plenty of other really fun ones out there. But
Another thing is like, what do you get out of playing each game? So when you're playing a game, what are you enjoying about it? Like, what is the purpose of you playing that game, right? For me, it's purely to have fun, to enjoy like this new scenario that my models are playing in, this new environment that they're doing. The cool thing about Fallout Wasteland Warfare is these scenarios are very narrative driven. So then I can create this kind of overarching meta that I'm doing. So even if I lose and lose badly, which I do often when I play, I can still have fun with that. So if you're kind of the player who you really want to just win more, that might be something that's causing you to have some issues if you're constantly striving and that's your goal is to win more. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, a great way to combat I guess fatigue is reevaluating your goals in a game. Um, and it's one of those things like if you're out there to win all the time, maybe take a step back and say, well, I want to win, but what does my army want? Um, and figure out what their story and their narrative is. And that's something that I learned when I played War Machine Wars. I was very much a competitive tournament player, and you know everything I played, I would play with the models I won, obviously, but it was tailoring a list to be as competitive as possible to win the game as hard as possible. And when I hopped over to Games Workshop games, I got to experience a little bit more of the narrative, right? Got invested in the story of my army, did all that. And then when I came back to War Machine, it's just like, okay, cool. Well, what's the narrative of my force? What do they want? What do they like? How can I bring this narrative into not only the list I make, but also the kinds of games I want to play with them? And that was kind of like a reinvigoration for me in terms of War Machine and Hordes, which was really, really cool. Uh, and fatigue itself. So, as an artist, growing up, a lot of people would use the excuse, "Oh, hey, I'm not inspired to work. I'm not feeling it right now." Uh, and
All the time.
yeah, all the time, right? And when you go to school, the first thing you learn, or one of the things the professors kind of teach you right off the bat, is it doesn't matter if you're inspired or not. You do the work, and that's you know, games are a hobby, they're not work. But at the same point, where if you want to make the most out of your gaming experience, uh, honestly, like pushing through the fatigue. And once again, that's where I do like a lot of hobby, or I'll come in and schedule games with some of my close friends where no matter what happens, I'm going to have a great time. And then
Mm.
I kind of rediscover what I love about the game through there. Because I'll take long breaks from any given system just because I work at a game store, so I play a little bit of everything.
Right.
And so when I want to get back into War Machine, I'll schedule a game with a close friend, and we'll throw down, and I'll get my butt handed to me. But afterwards, I kind of re-experience what I love about that game, and it's kind of like pushing
Mm.
through the fatigue itself. Um,
Yeah, because it's not forcing through the fatigue,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're not saying I'm gonna play until I like it again.
No, 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 no. It is making sure that you're giving yourself a scenario in which you can experience the best possible version of the game. So scheduling with your friends, scheduling it with opponents that you know you have a good time with, and you do it in a very relaxed manner. But getting exposed to those rules again and seeing how much fun it can be, like grabbing a couple of beers, playing a game of War Machine on like a casual night, to me, it always shows me, oh man, I really need to play this game more. It's a lot of fun. I don't know why
Mm.
I got burnt out in the first place, but it's breaking past that mental barrier of that burnout. Right? That's the reason why I schedule things. So like, I'll go to a friend and be like, hey, we're playing at 6 o'clock, and so when 6 o'clock rolls around, it's not like I'm going to like look at my clock and be like, I don't feel like driving to Gigabytes. Um, I've made a promise and a commitment to go do that thing, to hang out with my friend for that specific reason. And that, once again, helps combat the burnout, is scheduling events and games.
Yeah, because let's face it, we all have busy, stressful lives. Not
Right?
everyone, but most everyone does. And so when you do, the game has to be your way of getting away from all that.
Yeah.
Like the whole point of all this is to enjoy yourself and enjoy the time that you have away from work. So if this ends up being something like work, then that kind of defeats the purpose of a hobby, right?
Exactly. And
And there is, like, to your point of saying that sometimes you do just the repetition of if your one hobby outlet is miniatures or board games or RPGs or any tabletop gaming in general, then yes, that could get repetitive in a sense just because you're always standing or sitting at some sort of tabletop, right?
right.
But ultimately, like, people play video games sometimes even though they don't enjoy it. It's just kind of one of those things where they know that overall it's better, it's more fun for them than doing something else. Like, I don't fish, but a lot of people love just sitting there in the early morning and fishing.
Yeah.
And that's great. It's I've heard it's a very relaxing experience.
Yeah.
You know.
And with me, I'm probably more motivated by social aspects than anything else. So, um,
Okay.
let's say, you know, John, I'm burnt out on fishing, but you really want to go and you've never experienced it. If you come up to me and say, John, like, take me out fishing, I've never done it before, I'd love to learn, and I know that you do it a bunch. Um, it is that commitment to you, knowing that I'm going to be out there socializing with you, doing that thing over a course of time, gets me motivated to get back into it. Um, and so it is figuring out kind of what your big motivators are, especially in terms of like
Mhm.
gaming, like what you get out of it. Where if you are more of a competitive player and you're like, well, I'm kind of burnt out because I've been playing a bunch and I haven't been successful, right?
Mhm.
Um, an easy way to break out of that kind of monotony of, like, let's say you're stagnating in terms of your competitive nature is, once again, in terms of like social aspects, find that player, that top tier player on a Tuesday, and ask him for a game, or maybe even ask him to watch one of your games and give you pointers. Um, it is it is a great way to, like, one, improve yourself, having someone else watch you, almost like a tutor, and then two, it's motivation to play and play your best, and maybe that will kind of respark that motivation to get back into it. But figuring out what you want out of the game, like we were talking about earlier, and figuring out how to improve that aspect is a great way to fight fatigue.
Mm.
So
Oh, that's good stuff. So I think that covers a general range of
yeah.
avoiding burnout. That's pretty good. And we do have a ton to talk about still,
Oh god.
such as new releases that we have.
Yeah. Do you want to touch on the
So,
40k FAQ before we go to new releases?
actually, we could go the 40K thing last because I think we'll talk about it until we end the
Okay,
show.
that sounds good.
Because
All right.
we could talk about it for a long time.
Sure.
But to begin with, let's go through new releases so that everyone knows what's going on.
All right.
Um,
So first
yeah.
things first, we have some new Legion releases that I don't think we have a chance to talk about yet. So vehicles are here. Uh,
Mm,
so we have the Occupier Combat Assault Tank, and everyone's favorite land speeder. Um, And so these kind of
The
represent
best.
uh, some big models for Legion. And if you guys haven't seen Rogue One, that's where the combat assault tank is from, and everyone hopefully should recognize the land speeder from the original trilogy. Uh, Not only are these models from the movies, but they also have like additional aspects to them that has been expanded upon through either extra books or films or shows or just writing in itself. The land speeder I like a lot because you can basically pop the hood off and you can see it on the inside and make it look really ramshackle if you want to. I
Mm.
know Matt Blaisdell painted his up to basically as beat up as possible to really make it look like the rebels have had this one and have been keeping it afloat for longer than they maybe should, uh, which I like. And the assault tank from Rogue One, uh, basically you can modify the weapon loadouts and like the guys on it and all that sort of good stuff.
But the Y-wing originally when they designed it, I think the original mock-ups was heavily armored,
Oh,
but
really?
then eventually when it came closer to production time to produce the actual models, the scale models, they said let's make it more ramshackle. Like it shouldn't feel like it's this nice looking thing because it's the Rebel Alliance, right? So the X-wings look all right, but then the Y-wings being these bombers, they took off all the armor for extra speed and stuff, and that's the kind of mentality that is perfect for that land speeder. Like take
Right.
all the junk off, let's go fast.
Yeah. So once again, these are great additions for Legion, and the Legion community has recently really kind of taken off with scheduling events and things like that. So if you guys
Hmm.
are interested in
We had an 18-player tournament, didn't we? Like
yeah,
2 weeks ago.
which was probably our strongest turnout for a Legion tournament, which was great to see the community really coming out and playing and participating. We know we had Dan Wolf here doing a lot of
Hmm.
the live streams for us, so really brought a lot of attention to it. So we appreciate that. But yeah, if you guys are interested in Legion, come on by. We have huge selection and we have a lot of events going on. So
Yep. And with Clone Wars coming out this summer or
yeah,
fall,
one late summer, I think.
yeah, like August-ish, maybe Gen Con.
Hopefully, well, yeah, hopefully Gen Con. All right, so next thing that we just got back or that we got in is the there we go Spiral Corp box
Ooh,
for Infinity. This is a Toha group of mercenaries that are its own like mercenary affiliation. Um, this box set's like $99 and comes with pretty much a full force ready to go and terrain. So
really?
pretty amazing. Yeah, it's a great deal. And the minis obviously are Infinity, so they're gorgeous,
Amazing, yeah.
and it coincides with the Daedalus Falls rulebook. So if you guys haven't checked that out and are either playing Infinity or interested in it, it's definitely something you should check out. It's really
And what
really.
faction is that's in there?
So it's basically mercenaries. So
Oh, sweet.
they have added a new mercenary subfaction with the Spiral Core. So
Okay,
yeah, it's
I like
really
that.
cool. I'll probably be picking it up because I really love the design of the models in there. They're all Toha, so that like bio organic alien armor to them. So it was really really cool.
Nice.
All right, the next
And
thing.
Infinity models are just amazing.
Yes, they are all metal, but they are absolutely a blast to paint up. So, and they paint very differently than pretty much any other lines that we have here, just because it's that like sleek techno punk kind of sci-fi setting to it. So,
And if you want to learn how to paint better, Infinity's the way to go. You can find people who paint Infinity, like Jesse,
yeah.
Carlisle, who just amazing.
All right, and last
Isn't he
thing.
a gold? Not Golden Demon. Is he a Golden Demon winner? Or?
I don't know if he has Golden Demon, but he's won several awards at Gen Con and pretty much any other show that he goes to. Uh,
Right.
so he's a phenomenal painter, and he's been working on a Pan Oceania army
Ooh,
for a
nice.
while, and painting blues are difficult, and he makes it look super easy, and it's so frustrating how good he is at it. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is the visual adventure book line that we started coming in.
Okay.
So basically, these are graphic novel adventures,
Ooh.
and so it is kind of like a choose your own adventure role playing game, um,
Okay.
set in several different worlds. The Crusoe crew, obviously a little bit more fantastical, but we also have other ones like Captive, which is going to be more of a horror survival kind of setting. Um, but we just got these in, and so the artwork and all that is absolutely gorgeous. I don't want to open the book too,
Oh my gosh, wow.
but they're basically like full-on graphic novels, and they have all these like settings and stats and things like that in the back, and it's a blast to play through. So uh, definitely, definitely check it out. You keep track of your character the entire time you're playing through it. So like you'll have stats that will change. Uh,
Ooh.
Obviously, the first thing I look at is my bank account, um, especially when I'm living in the old west, or just living in 2019 in America. Um, but you also have like the population of the town and all that sort of fun stuff. So it's a very, very cool system that we have in, and I personally think it's really, really awesome. Me being a big comic supporter, I love that we have this kind of comic esque role playing games here at Gigabytes. So, all right.
Ooh, Sherlock Holmes. Now these are also some of these are kid friendly.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. A lot of them, and you can basically flip to the back and kind of see. They'll give you an age range, whether it's 14 plus or kid friendly or
Oh, sweet.
adult kind of thing. But if you guys ever want to pick some up for kids or family or anything like that, and you have questions, come ask one of the employees. We'll be happy to inform you on it.
People are pining for Slanesh, John.
I know, I know. All right, enough comics. On to Slanesh. All right. So we have the new wave of Slanesh releasing this Saturday. This is the Concorded Epitome. Uh, and all these models are absolutely great. I think the redesign of Slanesh has been one of the most long awaited things people have been asking for from Games Workshop. And a lot of that came from the fact that we didn't really know which way Games Workshop was going to go with Slanesh when they decided to eventually redesign it. And personally, I love the fact that they have pretty much kept within the Slanesh wheelhouse that they have established a long time ago. They've just kind of pushed the decadence and the kind of like carnival flavor to it.
Hmm.
And so it's a
Like Persia from 300 movie.
yeah, so it's a little bit basically they borrowed like the opulence from a bunch of different cultures from different points, right? So
Mm.
I see a lot of like Victorian or maybe Elizabethan style like elegance in them, but also the like decadence that you'd see depicted in 300 from the Persian
Wait, say that again. Eliza what?
Elizabethan.
Oh, that was good.
Why? Is that's how you say it?
No, no, it's just
Yeah.
I don't hear that word very often.
Um, but yeah, so uh, the Keeper of Secrets is kind of like the top notch where they really busted out their design chops, and it is
Dude, that goat head thing, man.
so and it's really awesome because they have the faces that go from kind of more goaty to less
Hmm.
goaty, depending on which one you choose. And it's really kind of exciting to see how they just like subtle changes in the face shape really kind of pushes like a more animal versus a more like human face to it. But we also have our first character Keeper of Secrets with Shalaxi, uh, and
Oh yeah.
that's really like it's really cool to
Isn't that the one that has like you can face down an opponent and they have to like charge you?
something like that. I want to say that's what Shalaxi does. I haven't. I'm sorry, I'm terribly out of date with the rules on these. I've just been
No,
too
it's
busy with
yeah.
other
I
stuff.
think it's basically you can challenge an opponent who's unengaged,
Yeah,
and then they effectively have to duel you for a round, and
which,
you have the ability to basically murder them instantly, no matter who they are. You're
which
like
is
your weapons are all like 3 damage. I think
uh,
Rin is like -2 or something, or -3, something ridiculous.
yeah. I remember I had a friend up here, Grady, and he was going on about like some of the silly things you can do, where like you can increase the damage Shalaxi does in a duel, like up to like 5 damage per hit, which is it can be pretty brutal. Um, But those are all the new kind of plastic kits that we got. We got a redone of the mask. We got a Demon Prince / Herald combo, which I really like because you don't see, or we haven't seen something like that before.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to all that, Games Workshop is still pushing terrain for everyone.
Oh, nice. That looks nice. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, and so once again, the terrain has rules to it, which is a lot of fun. But just having it for your board or even display board, if you're going for a full Demons of Slaanesh army, is a great piece to own. And the price point on it, it's like $35 for a nice terrain piece. That to me, the Fane of Slaanesh, the one that is up there with like the mirror and the reflective qualities to it, seems like a lot of fun to paint. So it's a great way to basically get more into your army. So yeah. And the last new thing for this week is going to be the endless spells for Slaanesh in Age of Sigmar. So these are going to be Age of Sigmar specific, but once again, they're going to make for great mod pieces or terrain pieces if you're a 40k player. But these guys are...
What is that one that's right under your hand? They look like little...
yeah, like the little spurs.
Coffee.
They're called the Wheels of Excruciation. And for me, who struggles with speech sometimes, getting that word out the first time, I'm feeling pretty accomplished. Stream over. Goodbye, everybody.
Right? You said Elizabethan?
Yeah.
Excruciation?
No,
I always want to turn into Sean Connery when I do that. Excruciation.
All right.
Not that I can do Sean Connery at all, but...
So, the last...
Oh, and before we get to the FAQ, we have to talk about Giga Monstrous May.
Yes. But we have two more Slaanesh things before we get to...
Okay. You do that, and I'll go grab a model here real quick.
All right, cool. So, okay, cool. We have this week releasing Fiends of Slaanesh, and then also the Infernal Entraptress. These guys were depicted or shown in the Wrath and Rapture box set. They're now available for purchase. Outside of it, we were able to get a limited supply of Wrath and Rapture in yesterday, but that should probably be about it since now all the models in Wrath and Rapture are officially out. So, I'm trying to see if we have any left. We actually might be out of it. We might have sold out of it yesterday. But they're now available for individual purchase, which is actually really great. So if you guys didn't have a chance to get Wrath and Rapture, or you just want the Slaanesh stuff, we got it here. So definitely check all the Slaanesh stuff out. We'll have it definitely full in stock up and through the weekend. For those guys who haven't pre-ordered any Slaanesh stuff yet, I think we're down to 2 Keepers of Secrets left for the weekend.
Oh, wow.
And only one of the Age of Sigmar books. So if y'all haven't pre-ordered, we have very limited supplies left for a few items. So please message the store, call the store, just let us know. Please. All right. On to Monstrous May. So May is a month that we have. And what we've been doing for the last 6 months or so is giving a theme to everything. May is going to be the month of monsters, thanks to Godzilla, King of Monsters, and we're going to be doing special events here in the store, one of them being a painting competition through the month of May. So, John, take it away.
All right, so I have my Avatar of Cthulhu from Dust. This thing is amazing. Look at that. So good, so good. So, for the month of May, same as last month, you choose a model. So I'm going to be doing my Migo Shooty Squad, because they're little monsters. They're not huge, but I don't have a big monster to paint. Oh, I do have a Dracolisk. That could count. Yeah. I'll either pick that or this one. And I also have ogres. I guess those could count as monsters.
Let's go for 50 millimeters or up for monsters.
I like it. Okay, so rather large guys.
Yeah.
And that's A-okay with me, because this guy's a little small then. So that's a good size requirement. And then you choose your model, and then you have our Giga Painting and Conversion group, which I will put a little link to as soon as the stream is done. And you can join that. We'll put a thread, basically do a post. You comment with the model that you're going to paint up, just like last month. And then try to get it done by the end of the month. When you do, submit it to us, and then we will pick a winner.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. There's a lot of fun things you can do with it. I probably will be working on a Trog boss since I need to get those painted up, or maybe my Trog hag. She needs to get done.
Ooh, yeah.
So she's a perfect one to do for that. She's giant, so I need to convert and paint her up, and hopefully do well this month and keep myself honest on it. So for those guys
Sweet.
who didn't participate, last month was our Cthulhu month. So we had two people place in the top two. Kate Shea, she did this amazing conversion of oh my god, a Legion battle engine, and then Chris Miller did a really great piece with the Infernals from Privateer Press. Did
Nice.
basically a diorama scene, so I'm excited to see what people were able to put in this month. Now
Sweet.
that being said, we had a bunch of great entries, and it's kind of it hurt me a little bit to only do the top two, but we're really glad to see the fact that we had a lot of people participating. We're hoping we're getting more this month. Oh yeah, you
Sweet.
should.
I'm excited about that. So, on to the FAQ.
Absolutely. On to the FAQ.
Oh man, the changes, the changes. Let's start off with they changed the charge rule, which some people were still confused about, even though they made it explicitly clear.
Right.
So they changed fly. Before, you could fly through anything, right? So then they made a change from the last FAQ to say that you can't charge through models, buildings, terrain, whatever. And now they've gone and said you can charge over models, but you still have to account for buildings, which is keyword buildings, so talking about fortifications and stuff, as well as terrain. So then if you're charging over a hill, you still have to account for the slope of the hill and all of that distance there. So typically when you're moving, you don't account for any vertical distance at all if you have fly, but only in the case of charging do you account for all of that terrain. And I was some thread, it might have been in spiky bits, it might have been in 40k, I don't know, but some dude posted a comment that effectively was like, it's unclear about blah 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 charging through models and whatnot. And it's literally explicitly clear that the only thing that you account for is a keyword building or any terrain feature. That was something that kind of shocked me when I read that. He's like, people are going to exploit that because it's not blah 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 blah. I was like, it literally says it right there, in there. How about you? What was the big thing for you, John?
Um so with me the big thing or the big change was probably the actual points change to the Castellan. I know a lot of people uh are kind of upset about that, but I'm glad that they took a model that was completely prevalent in the tournament scene and they adjusted the point cost.
One could say ubiquitous.
Yeah, just big words the show today. Um,
Ubiquitous means just everywhere.
right, uh, and so having them once again having that commitment to balance change, changing the point cost, upping it by 100 points. I know a lot of people knee jerked super hard about that, and it's something that happens with um, uh, with point changes like that. Um,
Hmm.
but I'm kind of excited to see where the meta shifts now that they've taken out some of the, and by taking out, adjusted some of the stronger players that might have been really undercosted. I'm also looking at Yanari psychic powers.
Yeah, Yanari, man. But they also changed the 3-up invulnerable that you could get to with a knight, and they capped it at 4-up no matter what. So
Right.
there's never a scenario that you can get to a 3-up save, invulnerable save.
Absolutely. So
Because that was crazy having a knight that was just shrugging off tons of hits. I mean, still half and half is still strong, right?
yeah,
But doing a 3-up invulnerable and playing custodes, I oftentimes have like 3 wound models, but what is it, a 20 plus wound model, 24 wounds, something like that?
uh, yeah. I think it's
It's a
24,
lot
26, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my
for the
head.
Castellan, yeah, yeah. But the Yanari got smacked, man.
Um, yeah, and that was between the April FAQ and the May White Dwarf. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of that just came down to their playstyle being really punishing to a lot of people, especially like newer folks. Basically, if you kill a unit, they do something, or if they kill one of your units, they do something. and it stops the out of activation or out of turn sequence. I think they adjusted that before, but to me, it's just like too much of a damned if you do, damned if you don't style to them.
Right.
So I'm glad that they changed that a little bit, um, made the rules a little bit less complicated in that sense, where it's like, hey, the unit dies, get a buff, right? So
Hmm.
uh, I personally like that, but I'm also not a Yunari player, so I'm not going to feel the power shift as other folks will. So
Right. And a big thing was they took away the Eldar sorcery stuff to affect Dark Eldar and other non-Eldar units.
yeah,
So before, you could cast all kinds of stuff, like they have Doom, which you can always cast on enemies, right? But they have other things that you can cast on friendlies, which no longer is the case. So they took away some of that soupiness that was involved.
absolutely.
Because people, I think, even in Warzone Atlanta, I think Red, who played, I think it was a Yunari list, effectively, he had the 3 Eldar bikes that were all Warlocks, I think, and they were casting all kinds of crazy stuff, right? But not being able to affect the Dark Eldar, which totally makes sense. They hate all kinds of
Right.
Psyker stuff. That just means that it's a little less of that jankiness that you were talking about.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, John, we got people lining up out the door, so I have to take off. But
Oh, is it time? Oh, it's noon.
yeah,
Oh
you're
my
welcome to
gosh,
keep
it
going.
is. Time flies. Okay.
But
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
yeah, no problem. Everyone, thank you for joining us. It's going to be a busy Friday here at the store. We have War for the Spark releasing as well today. So it will be incredibly busy. So if you guys want anything, please contact us either through our Facebook or through calling the store. We appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Then, final thing, this Sunday, 8:30 p.m., Wrath and Giga campaign. Wrath and Glory campaign.
Oh, and our Cinco de Mayo Monpok tournament on Sunday.
There's always so many things happening. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.